our Bible study today.
I've got enough in there. Uh-oh, wait a minute.
It's nice to be able to sleep with the air off and welcome a sunny day without too much humidity today. I think that's going to be the case later. It's kind of drying out right now. Welcome to everybody. A few announcements before we begin. I talked to Burdette Stewart yesterday, and his voice sounded really good. I don't know that he'll be here today, but he's having, of course, these treatments at the Hope Center for his colon cancer, chemo treatments. And I'm not sure that I understand it completely, but every so often he also gets another 48-hour treatment of some kind when they come to the house. And that treatment kind of has some bad side effects, sores in his mouth. I asked him if he is losing any hair, and he said, no, they say he won't. So with this, hopefully, not that that's a big deal with everything else in mind. But anyway, he wanted me to tell everybody how much he appreciates our prayers and just very grateful. I was looking for Nellie today. She had a treatment last week in Cleveland, but I don't see her or Betty this morning. You can check with her. It's great to have Dick Jones and Marge Ellen with us for the first time in several weeks, both of them. And Marge has been having some back trouble, and she's sporting a really nice-looking cane this morning. In our, some of our traveling, Vic and Deb are vacationing in the Carolinas. We took Mark, my brother-in-law, to Arizona, and we're hoping the twins will be born while he's out there. What?
Took him to the airplane.
Yeah, well, we took him to Pittsburgh Airport. What are you doing in here? There is a problem there. When she's there, she knows everything rightly, so I should say. And Jeannie told me this morning that Lombardi's are in Florida. And I didn't realize that. Something
I
about
think it's Florida, but I'm not sure.
celebrating her mother's birthday. Anyway, I was going to say about Mark that I was telling the Kennedys Friday was the 38th week, and with twins, instead of gestation being a full 40 weeks, they kind of move it up a little bit because of the size involved and everything. So the doctor had told her if she could get to 37 weeks, he felt good about the development. And so we're hoping, as she said, after she got to 37 weeks, she's going to start doing housework and jumping around. And so we're hoping that she's going to have those babies real soon. And wouldn't it be something if she had them today? We'll let y'all know later if that happens, and you'll put something on Facebook. Let's bow in prayer. Father, thank you for your love for us. Thank you for all of your blessings. There are so many, so varied. Some we see right beside us, others we see when we read in the scriptures, and we know in our hearts and in our minds that your love has blessed our lives immensely, especially with the gift of your Son. Please be with Burdette, and be with Nellie, and be with all of our church family who are struggling with their health. Be with others who are sad, and be with Sydney, Jean, and Isaiah as they prepare to welcome the twins. Thank you, Father, for all blessings through Christ we pray. Genesis chapter 23. What is the law now that used to be years ago when stores didn't sell alcohol on Sundays? Blue laws? And why was that called that? I don't either. Why was it called a blue law? Somebody
Because
moved.
that means alcoholics booze.
Sounds like alcoholism, alcoholism.
I know why, but why is it called a blue law? It's sad. Everybody was sad. They couldn't get alcohol on Sunday, so they called it a blue law. That's stretching it, Maggie. All right, we got to figure that out. But anyway, I was thinking, my chapter 23 of Exodus begins with sundry laws. And I was thinking down south, they probably read that. See, you should never have, on Sunday, it should be dry. You should not be able to have booze on Sunday. I'm making fun of my southern forebears, but some out in the country probably think that these do apply to things like that. But these are just a summation now of a bunch of various rules. But what I wanted to mention before we move into verse 10, which you see if you've got, actually our notes today are lesson 12. So if you don't have lesson 12, you need to get a new study guide, which is on the back table. But verse 9 is God tells the children of Israel through Moses. Moses is kind of a go-between. He goes up to the mountain, God tells him, God gives him the book of the covenant, and it's his task to make sure the people are educated according to God's teachings. So he gives the people all kind of rules and regulations, not just for the sake of rules and regulations. Let's think about this just for a moment from our human point of view. When you have rules and regulations around your house, Trudy, when the kids were all at home, certain rules and regulations they had to follow?
Yeah.
Now, were you doing that? Did you and Chan just sit down and say, let's see how we can make life miserable for you?
Well, they thought so.
These rules and regulations have a design to them, a positive. I mean, any loving parent is not just trying to inflict anguish or sorrow or hard work or whatever. I mean, sometimes you might say, when I was real young, actually I kind of got into this. I was the garbage man at the house. You know, my task, I was in charge of getting the trash to the road. But I even remember I got just a perfect size, a big box. We had, you know, a family of, I had 3 sisters and myself, and then later on, actually I wasn't the garbage man after Jerry came along. I was too old for it. Not that you outgrow that, but I was, okay. So anyway, this box, I even cut out little hand holes in it, you know. So I would go from room to room, and this is Bob before recycling, so we didn't have that thing going on. But I would gather up all the trash, and then it would go into the big trash cans, and then out to the road. Okay, so parents don't just do that. Well, He's not sitting back in heaven saying, how can I make life on earth really testy for everybody? He does this for our benefit. And behind, although we can't, seldom can we see it, seldom can we see all of the good to it. Behind all of God's laws, especially at a point in time, maybe even before, in advance, Ray, of scientific data about, you know, why you shouldn't eat certain kinds of food, especially without proper preparation, and all of these hygienic rules and rules about blood and stuff, which many ancient cultures were clueless about. Here God gives a manual saying, do all of these things, and there's a place earlier in the book of Exodus where God promises that if you do this, I will see to it that you have none of these diseases. And that's where the title of that great little book by Dr. S.I. McMillan came from. And the point being that that God was looking out for the welfare of the children of Israel. And here's one of the final sundry laws that we see in this category. Verse 9, you shall not oppress a stranger. Now, anybody have a different word for stranger? Alien? You talking Alf? No. You shall not oppress a stranger, an alien, a foreigner, a sojourner. And why? Now this one isn't so much logical. I mean, it is, but it's not, because you shall not oppress a stranger because they might be a terrorist and they might kill you. No. It's because you yourselves were strangers. Remember your time in Egypt. And so show love and compassion because you've walked in their shoes. So thus, the concept of hospitality, which is a love for strangers. Maggie?
They were called blue laws because back in Connecticut in the 1700s, those laws that you shouldn't do on the Sabbath were written on blue paper. So they were called the blue laws.
Did that just come to you, or that little phone device?
Me and my computer.
Siri told you?
Yeah.
Those things are amazing. Anything that comes to your mind. What was it the other day that we were wondering, or yesterday? We were wondering, we went on a little...
What a certain Scottish word.
Yeah, so that is helpful, but
Siri.
it's really sad when Siri is smarter than your preacher on the Bible.
Smarter than you on everything,
Speaking about smart, that was a Jackism. If Jeannie's mom was to say something to Jack to correct her, you want him to have a smart mouth about it. Yes, back in the back.
Mine also says that it's from the 18th century usage of the word blue, meaning rigidly moral.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Right, I do find those devices to be a little intimidating, though, I have to say. All right, let's move on to verse 10 and following. You shall not sow your land for 6. You shall sow your land for 6 years and gather in its field and its yield. But on the 7th year, you need to let it rest and lie fallow. What's the point here? Why? In fact, you can be educated on this a little bit if you just take a ride into Amish country, and you'll see that every once in a while a really very productive field. We're seeing this on a first-hand basis now at our campus, right over there in Boland. As you go there year after year after year, and you see one field and it's always full of, and then all of a sudden one year there's nothing. And you understand what's going on, that they're letting it rest. And probably, if we knew there has been plowed into the ground all kinds of nutrients that would help to replenish. Who had their hand up? Jan?
As I say about preserving the soil, especially replanting different crops, because you're depleting it of certain minerals and whatever.
Yeah, so there's and again, that sounds like something, well, everybody ought to know that. Well, that was kind of technology ahead of its time. Intelligence, awareness of the needs for the agriculture, even before others recognized that. So, but it says in verse 11, there's also a humane benefit to it. It's not just that, well, we don't want to wear out our soil, we want to keep growing good crops. What does verse 11 say? On the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow, so that the needy of your people may eat. Now, I don't know all the ramifications or all the specifications as to how this took place, but every 7th year, and I'm assuming this would, that they weren't on the same schedule for letting their fields go fallow. So all the time, there was some field that was fallow, which would be an open grocery store for the poor. The farmers let it go fallow, but whatever grew up in that field from remnant seeds or whatever, it was to be harvested by those Indians. All right, verse 12. Unless you've got other comments on any of this, feel free to jump in if you do. 6 days you'll do your work, but on the seventh day you'll cease from your labor in order that your ox and your donkey may rest, and that the son of your female slave as well as your stranger may refresh themselves. Kind of a summation of the concept of the Sabbath. This segues into this after talking about the field lying fallow on the seventh year. I'm not trying to analyze why Moses put it in this order, but certainly it's logical to go from that concept to the idea of the Sabbath. Why did God institute the Sabbath day? What was the point of the Sabbath day? First of all, what day of the week is the Sabbath day? Saturday, the seventh day. Now, what's the model for God's instituting the Sabbath? Where did he come up with this, or what, that's not the best way to say it. What does it reflect from creation? God created everything in 6 days, and then on the Sabbath day he rested. So that becomes a template or a model or a pattern for mankind. Work 6 days and rest on the Sabbath. Comments or questions? I thought you had your hand up, Jean. So, what does this mean for us? I don't want to say we're a post-Sabbatarian world, because we now, we've talked about this at length a little bit in times past. We no longer worship God on the Sabbath, although we do. Now we worship God in the Sabbath. And you say, well, what in the world do you mean by that? Well, and I'm basing this upon the theology that we find in the book of Hebrews, that yes, it's true that here we have a pattern, work 6 days and rest on the seventh. And it's not just a rest from your labors, but it's a time of reflection and attention to God, not meaning the Sabbath rules never meant that for the 6 days that you're out there working, you don't need to think about God at all. That would make a mockery of the Old Testament scheme of things. But on the Sabbath day, the seventh day, the children of Israel were to give special worship to God in ways that God specified. So now we worship on the first day of the week, and a lot of people just want to take the Sabbath rules and apply them to this day. And that doesn't quite translate. I mean, what does it mean today to rest on the Sabbath for us? I want to know what you think of this. In what sense are we in the Sabbath rest?
Jesus Christ is our Sabbath. So I'm going to rest in the rest of the day.
All right, so in the book of Hebrews, the Sabbath becomes an age, a dispensation of a new creation of rest. And that doesn't mean now that we're in the kingdom of Christ, we never have a first day of the week where we set aside. That's not what that's talking about. It's talking about, the best way to describe this is to think about how under the old covenant, there were so many rules and regulations, and many of them were so very beneficial and directly from God. And if the children of Israel would have followed them, they wouldn't have found them to be tedious or laborious or something that they dreaded. But what happened there was the Jewish leaders micromanaged God's plan and even embellished God's plan to where they made it almost impossible to keep all of these rules and regulations. And this is what Jesus was talking about when he spoke so harshly to the leaders of the Jews, and he said, you bind on them weights that they can't possibly carry. You make it so difficult for them to come to worship and to live their lives. So Jesus comes on the scene, and he says one of his words, and Nick, he's not bothering me. I looked that way, wondering if he wanted to comment, but Nick, I think, took my stare as to take him out, but I wasn't meaning that. So Jesus comes on the scene, and he says to the people, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And right there is the real meaning of the Sabbath. It's a time of rest. So Jesus is inviting us to change covenantal worlds and to set aside that old world that bound them and put weights on them to where it made life miserable. And Jesus is saying, come on, I'll give you freedom in Christ. And you're going to find that it's wonderful to live in the Sabbath. It's a time of grace, and it's a time of... so that's the main concept there. I don't want to belabor this point a whole lot because there's so much that we want to cover here. But God then makes rules about that. Verse 14. Any comments on the Sabbath before we leave? Okay, verse 14. 3 times a year you'll celebrate a feast. Sometimes let's give a little thought to how we could contrast the old with the new, but we could also draw some really helpful parallels. The old covenant, it seemed like they were always celebrating, and it wasn't always fun and games. There were serious sides to it. This is going to talk about 3 annual harvest festivals. And our concept of a festival is, okay, boy, that's really kind of amusement stuff, isn't it? You know, you're going to have like we're having this little fall fest, and Roseanne's kind of our leader here to help us get all organized. And there's going to be all kind of fun and games, and there's going to be food, and it's going to be sitting around and laughing and enjoying. And, well, that was part of that. They also had things that were taught by that. So I think there's something about the Old Testament festivals that maybe should, now let me be careful how I say this, I haven't rehearsed this, and I don't want to get in trouble over it. There's something about the very concept of the Sabbath for the New Age, and also these festivals in the Old Age, that ought to, maybe it should help us to lighten up a little bit. Because I think sometimes in the church, if we're not careful, it gets, I don't want to say it's serious. I'm not trying to minimize that. You know where I'm coming from here. I'm just trying to say that it was a time when they loved to get together, and the kids must have. I mean, if you were a Jewish child, just think how these festivals would have been marked on your calendar way in advance, and you couldn't wait to go. So it's not wrong for us to think about what can we do to make people enjoy this. That's not consumer driven. That's really got some biblical precedent here. All right, I may be off the, as they say, off the, what is it they say? Oh, what? one of these festivals is filled with great, kind of what you would call foreshadowing. And even the time of the festival has, well, by the way, what were the three biggies? What were the three big Jewish festival days? Josh, can you tell me one? It's early in the morning. Hannah, you got your little smart device there. You can probably figure it out. See, you guys could tell me what Marvin Jacobs was preaching when I was your age. And he said, you don't always have to know, you don't always have to be able to quote the scripture, but what you need to do as a student is say, I know how I can find out the answer. So a good answer, you could have looked at me and said, I don't know, but I'll find out for you. Okay. So Chris.
I think I can get one.
Okay.
What is Passover festival?
Yeah, very good. Passover, what else?
Unleavened bread.
Unleavened bread. Was that not connected with Passover? Yeah, that kind of blended with the Passover too, didn't it? Well, you can see in your notes these other ones, the Feast of Harvest, and Pentecost was the first of these, wasn't it? Oh, okay. Well, that's not our point here this morning. We're just kind of surveying. But one thing I do want you to notice in these verses 14 through 18, it says, verse 14 begins, 3 times a year you shall celebrate a feast to me. Okay, so it's not 3 times a year you're going to party and it's all going to be all about you. It's still about God. And then he tells them about the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is Passover, and the Feast of Harvest and the Feast of Ingathering. Both of those have to do with harvest times. And verse 17 specifies, and this is the world in which the Bible was written. We know there's a process here where women come in the ministry of Jesus. We see Jesus treating women in such positive and uplifting ways that in ancient times it would have never, this would probably never happen. But so there was lots of rules about men as the leaders of the home and spiritual leaders and so forth. And so it says in verse 17, 3 times a year all of your males shall appear before the Lord God. And what that means is they have to go to the temple, make an appearance at the temple 3 times a year. This is an agricultural world, and they're spread out all over the place. And it must have been difficult, but God says 3 times a year, the men have to show up for this. And implied in that is families will be there as well. Does that bother you? Does it bother you, ladies, that it just says the men here? Has anybody hung up about that, or do you have a serious issue, Gene?
Well, yeah, that doesn't bother me, that stuff, but my footnotes say that they were normally accompanied by their family, which is just reference, but men were the head of the family.
Yeah. Men were the head of the families. Our world is so politically correct today that if you say that in public now, boy, look out. You're going to be roasted. And some things in Scripture that speak about that are excised out of the Bible now. It's as if they shouldn't be there. God didn't know what he was talking about when he wrote all of this stuff. But there's truth here that we need to recognize and appreciate. Now, I think when we come into New Testament times, as I said, we find Jesus treating women in ways that in Old Testament times even would have been frowned upon. So there is a process where the light of the gospel lifts women out of a status. And you can't say this in a cold kind of a way. We often hear that sometimes women were treated almost like cattle. And I don't mean that like literally. Just meaning that they didn't have a whole lot of privileges and all of that stuff. But in Old Testament times, you have to really strain to see that, or to pick up that idea. I mean, you can see it in some, maybe tangentially in some rule like this, but you don't see Abraham looking at Sarah like she's a heifer or just a cattle. There's high respect there. There's love there. All the way back in the days of the patriarchs, there's not. Well, she doesn't count for anything. She's just one wife. All right, Ray.
Yeah, actually, in the Old Testament, especially in Genesis, there's a lot of references to where women had the power over a man and woman. I mean, Abraham put Hagar out because, Sarah
told him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to, but he did.
Well, and go right back to the garden. I mean, Eve is presented to Adam to be a helper with him, but when she speaks up to Adam, Adam doesn't say, "You don't have any voice in this household. What are you even talking to me? You're just a servant." No, she has status to the point where he listens to her.
Well, he abdicated, they were both in error because he abdicated his role as leader and she took it over.
Okay. Somebody else? Julia and Gabby, you almost matched. All right, the last part here, and again, we'll have to assign this for your homework, is the conquest of, or the strategy for how the children of Israel are going to conquer the land. And this, I have to say, it was I've read this obviously in the past, but it was kind of refreshing to read it again. Look at verse 20. God told the children of Israel, "Behold, I'm going to send an angel before you to guard you along the way." I'm going to send you an angel to guard you along the way, to bring you into the place which I've prepared. Now we know in the wilderness journey there was a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. We can talk about the benefits that the children of Israel derived from that, not only guidance, but protection from the elements. But here, God says, I'm going to send an angel before you, and it says that he'll guard you along the way. Anybody have any comments or questions there? I watched an episode of, or not an episode, the big screen movie Noah, which on some level is quite ridiculous, but on other levels, it made me think of this. They've got these kind of, if I'm remembering it right, there's these kind of, I don't know, they look like big blobs of whatever sitting outside around the ark, but if anybody comes around the ark, they all of a sudden become huge obstacles and monsters that I don't know what this means. I mean, to me, this almost sounds like Jesus here. Remember where Moses, God provides the rock from which water flows, and then Paul writes and saying in Corinthians, saying that rock that was with the children of Israel in the wilderness was Christ. So we know before Jesus was Jesus that he was existent as God, part of the Godhead. And there are numerous times, we had a study about this years ago, about the manifestations of Jesus in Old Testament times, and this very well might be one of them. But anybody have any comments or questions on this, or you have any footnotes or anything? The warning extends by telling the children of Israel, be on your guard before him and obey his voice. So this is a talking angel. He's telling them what to do. And it says, do not be rebellious toward him, for he will not pardon your transgression, since my name is in him. That makes me wonder if it's Jesus. All right, Keith's in. We got it. Anybody last word there? Tons of fascinating stuff here. We could get bogged down and take one verse every Sunday, but it would take till the year 3000 to get through. All right, thank you. Be sure to greet our visitors.
Well, you're doing any better than